have questions. Are we making sense?
Say in a district that let's pick like a Douglas County district that's typically very safe Republican, right? And because it's so safe Republican, maybe they drift off and not being very principled. Imagine that. The point being is that if you got pick a number, say you got 40%, right, or whatever, you got 40% of the approval vote, and the Libertarian got like 38. Do you think even having that in the back of your mind as a Douglas County Republican, like, oh wow, I only edged out my next closest competitor by 1 or 2%. I might need to, give a second thought to my vote before I just willy-nilly drift off on whatever.
You know what? I haven't thought about that, but yeah, I can see that happening. And here's what I do think would happen. When you've got multiple people running for one spot, you got a lot of negative ads. So person A says person B is horrible. They eviscerate kittens or whatever it is. Because in that situation, you get to vote for one. It's either going to be me or the other guy. So if I make you hate the other guy, you have to vote for me. Well, with approval voting, not only that doesn't work because you have to get the approval vote. So if there's 3 people running, if I try to make everybody hate the other 2, that doesn't mean they're going to vote for me. Whereas it can work if there's only one person, you can go, well, everybody really sucks, but this guy sucks less because he doesn't eviscerate kittens. But if it's approval, you have to get people to approve of you. So I think that is a consequence that is helpful.
I think what we're addressing here is more civility in the election because of the possibility of crossover votes.
I remember seeing something post about this with the recall elections because there was some hullabaloo about Libertarians stealing the vote from the Republican. But did I understand it correctly? Were the recall elections essentially approval voting? There was a list of candidates and you said yes. Is that right? Or how
with approval voting, and this is particular to Colorado, when we had the recall votes, there was 2 questions on your ballot. One, recall Morse or whoever it was. So yes or no. If no got more than 50%, it's over. Don't worry about it. He's not recalled. If yes gets more than 50%, which is what happened, then everybody who votes yes or no then says, well, who do you vote for then to replace him?
Even if you said no.
Correct. Yep. Even if you said no, because then
double
yeah. Awesome. Kinda. But if you love Morse, if you're a big-time Democrat, hate guns and everything else, you can vote no. Well, even if you lose, you still want to have say in who replaces them if you lose. That's the theory behind the recall election. So you vote yes or no to recall, then you vote for who you want to replace that person. So we had, obviously there were Republicans, you vote yes, recall Morse. And then I want the Republican to replace him. You also had the Democrat there to replace him. So you vote for one or the other, and whoever gets the most votes wins. So there was no stealing of, quote unquote, stealing of votes. As a strategic matter, if a Democrat is being recalled, the Democrats aren't going to put a candidate up because that's like saying, oh, go ahead and recall him and vote for this other guy. That's what happened with Hudak. Because you're either going to do one or 2 things as a strategic matter, and again, this is just specific to Colorado. You're either going to fight the recall or you're going to resign. Which is because if you resign with Hudak, as we all know, the Democrats get to replace Hudak. So if you don't think you can win, some party boss comes and has a sit down with you and says, I think we need to rethink your future in the legislature, which is what they did with Hudak. So there was no Democrat on the ballot once the recall was successful. So you pick one or the other. And so it was impossible to have a spoiler effect in those recalls. Because a lot of people were like, oh my God, the Libertarians have somebody on there. They're just going to help. They're going to help keep Morse in office. Well, that was impossible given that situation.
Okay. Looking at our results this evening, with 3 methods we used, plurality, approval, and score voting. For this crowd here, Tom Tancredo won both the plurality and approval voting methods. When it came to score method, Scott Gessler won. Well, So now coming over to the numbers, with plurality, Tom Tancredo won with 9 out of the 16 votes that were cast.
There are actually 17. On the plurality, there was one that voted for all of them.
Okay.
So that was read through that.
So,
That's the right way to do it.
okay.
It was the butterfly ballot.
So 9 out of 16 is what Tom Tancredo got when you could vote for one and only one. Versus with approval voting, he got 13 of the 16 voters voted for him, but close on his heels is Scott Gessler and Bob Beaupre at 9 and 7 versus what was with plurality vote, he could kind of ignore them because they were further back in the pack. And then with regards to score voting, Scott Gessler got a score of 5.47, and Bob Prey was at 5.17, Tom Tancredo at 5.05, and Mike Kopp at 2.47. So,
This group obviously does not think very highly.
but when we used at in mid-November, we had a election method convention with Free and Equal hosting us down in Glendale. The 4 candidates were, wait one second, Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, Jesse Ventura, and a 4th one that escapes me. Jesse Ventura got maybe 2 out of the 40 votes with plurality when it came to approval voting. He got 30% of the voters voted for him, knowing that they weren't wasting their vote on the individual.
With the score voting, I'm not a math guy. It's probably obvious to all of you guys, but you can either add up your scores from 0 to 10 and add up everybody's scores. Whoever gets the most points wins, right? Or you can divide it by the number of votes and get an average number of votes between the score between 0 and 10. It's going to be the same result. But I'm just used to thinking about in total numbers. So it'd be difficult for me to, I mean, it doesn't make any difference, but I go, so-and-so wins with 800,000 votes is easier for me to comprehend than so-and-so wins with an average 5.6 vote total. It doesn't matter, but just a way to conceptualize that.
And so for Dave, Scott Gessler got a score of 93. Bob Beaupre got a score of 88. Tom Tancredo 86, and Mike Kopp a score of 42. Yes. Wait. Hold for a brief moment. A round of applause for our election judges and a fair election. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Your pockets will be checked on the way out.
That will be election.
Yes.
Question, and I'm gone.
You'll hang up and listen.
He has a jar of the money in his pockets.
You can't check my pockets. So on the, I title it the score voting. I title it the SUV because it's subjective as far as someone's 5 out of 10, maybe 5 out of compared to a Democrat, or I like them 5 out of this. So it's very subjective. But what I liked about the scoring is that why I put the average on there is basically everyone voted Gessler, Tancredo, and Beaupre at a 5 out of 10. I mean, overall, everyone thought each 3 were 5 out of 10. I'm not sure statistical relevance on how different it was, but I know Mike Kopp would never won. But on the approval, I put it on there. I thought it was interesting that each person who voted average 1.8 people per ballot. So everyone voted once, and then that 0.8 was for Mike Kopp. But I thought it was sort of interesting. Everyone liked average 2 people they wanted to vote for, as opposed to 3 or 1. And then
And that will change depending on the
that
candidates.
could change how many
Depending
you
on the
have.
candidates.
But-
And another thing, the scale, we did 1 to 10. You can do 1 to 5. You can do 17 to 43. It doesn't matter as long as it's the same every time you do it.
But on the scoring one, I could rank them all like 1-5, 1-5, 1-4, 1-2. Like that would have skewed the results as someone that was ranking them 5, 4, 3, 2. So on the subjective, it's purely subjective. And
Well, aren't
really
all subjective, purely subjective?
well, they are, but it's more so on the scoring because someone's 5 is not someone else's 5. And
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Someone else's 10 credit was not someone else's full credit.
Right. And if you like the approval voting, I'll just point out that approval voting is score voting on a 2-point scale. 1 or 2. So it's just a matter of how many choices, how big a scale you want to give for people to vote. And in gaining the vote, Poundstone concluded that some kind of scale, whatever it is, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, people get to distinguish between the candidates more specifically than they do with approval voting. And approval voting, however, may be a little easier to explain. But so they're different. And to me, that's the big point, is that there are other ways to come up with a result where you don't have the winner getting 30%. And I think that's good.
Yes, Dennis.
I hate to sound too cynical, but given America's world standing in math education, I don't think any scoring technique at all would be doomed to failure.
Quite possibly, and that's why I'm keeping it as simple as possible with approval voting. That my mathematician experts would like to see score voting implemented. I told him it's tough enough going up the hill with approval voting. The important thing, there's no additional cost and there's no additional math.
Sometimes I'll hear people say, well, what about the Electoral College? This has absolutely nothing to do with the Electoral College. Nothing. I'm a huge proponent of the Electoral College back when I used to do more active stuff down at the Capitol. Just about every year, some Democrat tries to get Colorado to join the national popular vote crap. And since democracy is a horrible idea, and that's why we have the Electoral College, I've spoken out against that. This has nothing to do with it. If you've got 1,800 people on the ballot for president, no matter what, right now we've got plurality vote. Winner takes all. He can get 30%. He gets all the Electoral College votes. That's fine. That's the way it should be. If we go approval voting, whoever gets the most approval votes gets all the Electoral College votes. If we have score voting, whoever gets the highest score gets all the Electoral College votes. It doesn't affect the Electoral College at all. So I think it's important for people to understand.
You mentioned that you were a fan of the Electoral College.
Absolutely.
If you would put your old LP chairman party hat on for a moment, tell me, would you prefer that the electoral votes per state be apportioned according to the popular vote, or are you for all?
All or nothing.
All or nothing.
That gives the states more power in the federal government.
But if you have apportionment, you could possibly start having a legitimate third party.
I don't think it would. I don't think that would have any. I don't think that would change, because right now you've got whatever the last election was. Obama got whatever it was, 52%, and Mitt got 46, and Gary Johnson got 1.3, and whatever else was left. Republican. I mean, if you're not going to get the third parties aren't going to have enough to get any Electoral College votes, and even if they do, and actually, there's only been one third party candidate ever to get an Electoral College vote, and that was a Libertarian for vice president in 72 or something. Yes. And it was somebody, I don't know where it was from, but it was some electoral, an unfaithful voter said, "Screw you guys, I'm voting for the Libertarian."
Electoral voter did a protest vote.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that has happened, but
amen to him.
but it wasn't for president; it was for the Libertarian vice president. So whatever that means, but it did happen. But I don't see a representative or a proportional Electoral College system helping third parties at all. And even if it did, it would dilute the power of the states and the federal government, which I'm firmly opposed to. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.